Good afternoon. Things can change and change quickly. A couple of days ago, when it looked like Trump would prevail and win once again, honestly, I had to work with myself from going into despair because I'm just so tired of the emotional roller coaster. If everything else is ignored, the emotional roller coaster that's been American reality for the last 4 years is just. I long for something, the boredom that I used to appreciate of the president coming on. And it's kind of a yawn, you know? Oh well. Instead of a soap opera. Just enough. And so I came up with this. I was, like I said, close to despair. And let's put away politics and conservative and liberal and progressive and talk about human beings. And that night when I went to sleep thinking that I had to put up, the roller coaster was going to continue for 4 more years. With some soul searching, because this equanimity that I work with, that I experience and I live with, and I am defined by it quite literally, was a little topsy-turvy, to say the least. So I started tuning in. It was like time to check out somebody else and get out of the headspace, to get back to the crux of the matter. What's important? What was for me to focus on? And I ran across this quote by William Stafford, who I'm not sure is a poet. It says, "It is important that awake people be awake, for the darkness around us is deep." And almost back to back, I read this quote from Buddha, or a teaching, reference back to Buddha. The Buddha reminded us over 2,500 years ago that constant change and impermanence is the inherent nature of manifest existence. The existence that we're aware of, that's manifested, means brought forth and available for all of us to witness. And so that helped. Back to back, number one, as an awake being, my biggest responsibility is to be awake. And Buddha helped my mood, my shift, because stress reminded me of the impermanence, the constant change of the world around us. So, in the scheme of things, my attention being paid to this presidential sideshow kind of I wanted to turn it into something positive, okay? And this positive was just a simple reminder that these are the times that we have to be aware, and we have to appeal to all the awakened beings. The 70,000 at least that I mentioned, my calculation, the gift was gifted to me in the meditation. 1/10 of 100% of the world's population is awake, and currently it's awake now with us here. And I did the math several times. Came up with 70,000. So anyway, there's 70,000 awake people out there, and just remind all of us, or having a reminder to be aware of this awakeness. You know, we have the COVID-19 crisis going on at the same time, and this was all a little much for me. But meditation, as always, righted my course, set me straight. And this reminder of responsibility to always be awake, and that all things change. The impermanence of the manifest existence, as Buddha put it, beautiful. And before this video, I had talked about when the teacher is ready, the students will appear. And I kind of that was always, it'd been in my consciousness for a long time, that I'd like to have a place that I could have a meditation hall, a place that people could come and meditate, kind of a spiritual oasis. And I thought that the universe would provide. And today, rather than talk about the reminder of awake people to be awake, which was my subject for yesterday, or the day before, that seemed most relevant, has shifted to today's about opportunities. And I can see now that this experience of, my own struggle with what's going on in the U.S., the COVID, the circus, the three-ring circus, the emotional turmoil, the distraction. And this was an opportunity which now I'm grateful for, because it served as a reminder about my own responsibilities, my own practices, and quite frankly, my own arena or area of influence. How far can I project my influence? How much influence do I have on the events around me? How close do they have to be? Obviously, sitting here in Taiwan talking to you while the presidential election is going on across the Pacific, my ability to exercise any influence is, of course, nil. But the reminder, this whole thing, this process of being reminded of what's in my purview, what's in my capabilities, what is my sphere of influence. And it boils down to, who am I responsible to? Well, this reminder for the awake to be awake is a reminder that it's of my personal responsibility. And the vigilance that I have to pay to maintaining the state of equanimity. Because I'm working on that to be a constant in a world of continuous change. So we can find permanence within, the permanence of maintaining a state of being, the permanence of understanding that what appears to be division is just a mirage, it's just illusion. All there is unity. And this is our responsibility to live as a constant reminder to those that come in our sphere of influence that this unity, this inclusiveness is all that there is. We're simply brothers and sisters in the light of the infinite. So this is part of the opportunities that I was talking about. Today's sharing is titled Opportunities. And I started looking around. This was so this underlying, I want to say drama, this underlying state of awareness that it's that how to provide this space, this oasis, this safe harbor, and how to provide and offer a place to people where they could come and enjoy refuge, the peace, perhaps learn some love of meditation, opportunity to meditate without the distractions of we bring our own distractions, don't we? We don't need the distractions of the outside world. So I was saying at that time that the universe would provide. And that means playing the waiting game. And I'm pretty good at that. What's meant to be will be. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. But then I thought, well, maybe I should take a more participatory role in this. And I started looking around at the resources that were available to me as I sit here looking at you. And my house, I have a beautiful enclosed garage area that would lend itself really well to a small meditation hall, a small gathering place, a sanctuary, expanded sanctuary to include any that have an interest. So the opportunity It'll take some work, not much. Some things have to be sorted out. There's a lot of stored things that need to be moved. My car is in the garage, but I could temporarily. Anyway, these are all things. I won't bother you with the technicalities. What I want to stress here is how that I found an answer. And this is something that I can put in action. And again, I leave myself open to, because I have a vision in my mind. I have a whole ashram design, a grand idea, a grand vision that I've had for many, many years and wondered if it'll come to fruition. It involves having a space where a spring, where water comes up, a spring, and building concentric circles, building structures in concentric circles, much as you drop a rock in it. This is this expansion. So maybe I don't have a spring in my garage, but maybe I'll get one of those water features, the feng shui, some kind of water fountain, and that can be my metaphorical spring, because spring means life, springs. Water is life, and moving water is critical for life. And it also is symbolic of change and of strength. Water will wear away the hardest substance. I don't know what it does to diamonds. I haven't really thought about that, but other than maybe the advanced carbons, I know certainly natural things, the hardest of the rocks, the strongest of our metals. But again, diamond is natural, isn't it? Anyway, I'll work on that. But you get my drift. And I feel really good because something that was obvious, and I'd envisioned this. Actually, I'd envisioned this in the past, but when I got this house, I inherited it with a lot of my brother's things that didn't go with him to his nearby move because it just didn't have the space, and this is a big house and there's only two of us, and I could keep the things that he didn't have room for. But anyway, now I talked to him and I said, let's get my space back. It's time. It's been a couple years. I need this space because I shared with him what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do, it has to be within the confines of my financial condition. I don't have the money to go and rent a hall, but I'm renting this place, and I got the space. But I'm just saying, and it's a reminder, and I'm saying to any of you, look around for your opportunities. And to take this one step farther, this whole election thing has been an opportunity for me because I went from borderline despair, thinking the worst of my compatriots. Like, I'm still a little puzzled how 70 million people could vote for a man who's shown us so little, and yet at the same time way too much. But the journey into my responsibility by stumbling across awake people be awake. So it was a battle cry. Awake people, awaken. Awake people, be awake. And then to see a solution that is well within it's doable, it's workable, and I can have something going in a matter of weeks to months. And it's really interesting as this dawned on me, as I looked around, appreciating the opportunities that are offered to us. Maybe what we want is already here. In my case, I wanted a meditation hall. It's here, just downstairs. It'll be great. And there'll be a period of adjustment as neighbors and people drive by and wonder. Wonder, but like all things, they'll get used to it. Some neighbors may even have a curiosity and to come to see, come to experience, come to participate, who knows? And it's interesting because once the solution, once the opportunity appeared, it's been pretty rapid fire ideas and creation and visions of what it will be. So I haven't taken it much farther than creating it. And it's all still in my mind. All the work remains to be done. But the hardest part was telling my brother that, we have to consider, and I used the we have to consider getting another space to put, and he's talked about wanting a workshop that he could have his tools, which are taking up another part of my storage space here in my home, and he could have them all in one place, and he could actually start doing things. And I have a desire to do things, beginning with refinishing furniture and maybe even building some. Been feeling creative, and I think that even though I've never done anything as far as I've done a lot of refinishing, but never done anything as far as furniture, creating furnitures, but just a simple table. Can you imagine? Those of you that do create things, amazing. My wife has been creating these amazing bracelets, and she's just become totally immersed and loving every minute. And being a multitasker, she can be putting these together and watching her video game and doing her online work and listening to music and doing yoga and probably everything all at once. Great multitasker. It's probably just the direct opposite. The yang to my yin, I think, probably. And I didn't get that backwards. The male energy, the creative, the productive energy, and the receptive energy. I'm more receptive. I'm more yin than yang. And we're all different percents of yin and yang. But doing something, maybe making this meditation hall, doing the refurnishing, maybe I can celebrate my yangness a little bit, because I'm totally secure in my yin, in my receptive. But maybe balance is a good thing, isn't it? So this all became possible for my disappointment would be a mild term, and despair is too harsh. What's between disappointment and despair? It's got to be something. I'll get that word. Disappointment and despair. So I was closer to despair, going to sleep that night. So much to the point that I couldn't really sleep, woke up, and then I started looking around, using that fine tool we have, the internet, for spiritual resources, and found this reminder from a poet and from my Buddha, from our Buddha. And then to myself, taking it hard to be awake. And then opportunities for the latest thing that has been on my mind, what's actually been on my mind, but it's in the front of my mind instead of the back of my mind, is this creating a space. And then it became, yeah, I have it. All I have to do is create it. I needed a space, and I had to create the environment that I wanted. And my garage, I really spend a lot of time in there meditating. I have my morning coffee and my meditation, and I have an afternoon. Probably after this video, I'll go and sit outside in the garage on my favorite little steps up to the front porch. I have a chair, and I sit there and I enjoy. So I've already started creating the environment, the spiritual environment, already working on that. And now everything will just fall in place. So I'm sharing with you, as I have been recently, about my process, in the hopes that, number one, you won't find it too boring. And number two, or maybe I should reverse that. Number one, you might find something that you can apply that's applicable to your own adventure. And then the second one I released, I repeat, was that it might be of interest. It's of interest to me anyway. This process of change, this documenting, this observing, this witnessing of change in myself. It just serves to strengthen the resolve, to continue to stay the course, to continue. I even put my fiercest dragons on today. And the eyes. This is the vigilance. And the reflection is pretty interesting too. The pattern. So even picking this shirt was part of sharing of this unlimited. I mentioned before when I was talking about the teacher. The teacher is ready, the students will come. And talking about this whole idea of creating a space. But really, my main message is that the first thing I turned to was meditation. Then I turned to outside resources, other spiritual resources, so available on the internet, one click away. I haven't picked up my Tao Te Ching and opened it in a long time, and maybe I'll do that right after this sharing and get some further guidance. But what I want to share is that this unlimited resources is opportunities. You already have what you want. It's just up to you to express it, to find your means of expressing it, your means of sharing it. And this is just what I've gone through. And I'm celebrating this abundance. There's no desire. There's no wishing or hoping. Look around. Be strong. Be resolute. Go back to the basics if it helps. That's what I always do, is go back to the basics. And for me, basics is meditation. I got up from bed, couldn't sleep anyway, and I sat and meditated. I put some particularly moving meditative music that I like and sat for an hour or two, and then went to the internet and click on this message for the awake to be awake, and then one step away from the Buddha's own words of wisdom. So this is how it works, at least for me. Things out of my control, the election, all the turmoil, all the people that are restless, all the unsatisfied, unhappy people with their divisive rhetoric, their divisive stance. Just to see that there's an opportunity, always an opportunity, and most importantly, you already have whatever you want. Just find a way to make it so.